Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, and our show today is Dementia Home Care, how to prepare before, during, and after. And our topic is someone I love has dementia. Now I'm their caregiver. What do I need to know? Joining me is the star of our show, Tracy Cram Perkins. This is our first show together with this topic, and it's really incredible because Tracy went from being a guest to being a co-host, and ultimately she will be running the show by herself. I was so taken with her when I first met her and interviewed her because she has survived caregiving for people in her family whom she loved who were diagnosed with dementia. And instead of running away and freaking out, she decided to go all in, and she captured her experiences in her book, which you see here behind me. I have a copy of her book. I highly recommend it. I actually did a book review. You can see it on our YouTube channel, USA Global TV and Radio. Let's bring Tracy out and congratulate her and hear what she's been up to. Welcome, Tracy Cram Perkins. Hello.
Hi, Dr. Jacalyn. Thank you so much. This is so exciting. Um, eh, I just can't even wait to share all the stuff that we're going to be talking about during our podcast. One of the things that I really wanted to talk about was what happens to someone's brain when they actually have a disease like Alzheimer's disease. It is one of those things that, as a caregiver, I had no clue what was going on with my family. I started from scratch just like everybody else. And why was my family, my mom, my dad, doing these crazy things, forgetting stuff, telling me these stories that didn't even exist, that they never did, and I couldn't figure it out. And so I had to dive deep to find out why this was happening and how I could help them. And so one of the things I discovered, and if you can show the slide that we have, it's I found out that the disease actually deteriorates the brain. So the slide that you're looking at right now, on the left, you're seeing the healthy aged brain. That's somebody that's 55 and above. On the right, you're seeing somebody with moderate Alzheimer's disease, which is what my dad was like. Literally, his head was filling with water because his brain was shrinking. There were holes and gaps in there, and his story could not cover the gap. So whatever made logical sense to him was what he would say, even if it had nothing to do with it. Even if he'd seen it on television 5 minutes before, it would become his story. And I had to learn how to go with that because that was not something that it seemed normal. I mean, my whole thing was, well, that's not right. You need to know what's right. If my mom had died, well, she did die. She died before him, that he needed to understand that she was dead. And so then we would go through the grieving process again. And it wasn't until later that I found out that that's not the way to do it, that it's much more compassionate if I actually allow him to tell his story, answer his questions, and perhaps redirect him whenever he's having a problem. Because then we can, A, make sure that he feels safe and secure, and then he's happier. And if he's having a good day, I was having a good day. But it took me a while to figure this out, and it wasn't until somebody pointed me to the information about what happens to the brain that I discovered that this was an issue. So that's why we're one of the reasons we're here today is because I didn't want to give up on my family. I wanted to be able to help them get to the point where they could actually feel like they're living and that we could have an enjoyable time together. And because what dementia does is it picks the threads. It unravels your life and the emotional connection that's usually a lifetime of connection. It's what grounds you. And not being able to have that connection anymore is devastating. I mean, you are grieving this enormous loss. And what can you do to at least have some level of connection, create some moments where you have great memories? And that's really important if you want to survive caregiving.
Tracy, thanks for sharing that picture of the brain. That was really eye-opening to me as well. And I love what you just stated about the fact that we want to correct them because we want them to know what the truth is. And yet it becomes almost like this back and forth struggle because they really don't understand what you're saying to them. They don't remember. It doesn't make sense. And then it's kind of like a tug of war where nobody wins.
Exactly. And then you get frustrated and you get angry and upset and you get frayed. I mean, you just start snapping and you can't help it, and it's not their fault. They're doing what their brain tells them is the correct thing. And part of our survival mechanism as human beings is when we learn, we make connections between things. When those connections are gone, we have to fill in the blank somehow else. And that's what they're doing. They're filling in that blank with what they think is logical, even if it has nothing to do with what's going on around them. And we have to recognize that and then figure out how to keep them safe and how to redirect them if they're melting down. Just simple things to keep them happy and calm. And you can have a much better relationship with them. And then you get some downtime.
Tracy, I think that's really powerful and enlightening. I think there are two things here that obviously are very deep and profound. One is you are in the role of a caregiver, but at the same point in your story, you're also still the daughter. And so, how do you walk that line between those two things?
Well, at first, I didn't do it well at all. I failed continuously. I had to learn how to choose to let go of the truth. I found out later that it's called compassionate fibbing. I didn't realize I could give myself permission to actually go with the flow, enjoy the moment, and not punish myself because everything was going wrong and I'm losing this lovely connection, but how to actually just connect with my dad or my mom or my aunt or uncle and just make sure that we could stay connected. And once I gave myself that permission and chose to do it, it became much easier to create memories with them, to do activities, to figure out, okay, I now know what this limitation is. I'm not saying it was easy. It wasn't easy, but I have some really phenomenal memories of some crazy things that we got to do with my dad that would have never happened if I hadn't given myself permission to let go at least part of it. And it's just knowing that that's possible so that you can choose that path, to realize that if you can go with the flow, if you can laugh with them. Sometimes if they're upset and you just start laughing, they may laugh with you if you're not laughing at them. If you're just laughing, just something to get them broken from the chain of repetitive comments, because you'll find that what's happened is when they're repeating something over and over in this huge loop, it's because they forget that they've just said it, and they're searching for something and they don't have an answer. And so they're trying to tell you with this repetitive loop that they've lost something and they can't find it. And so by asking them questions and letting them fill in the blank, and it doesn't matter if they're just imagining it or if it's real, just let them tell you that story. But if you can ask enough questions to guide them away from that, then you actually don't have to listen to it 45 times in a row.
Wow, what a relief that must be, right? For
When you can get there, yes.
So, Tracy, in this whole thought process and based on your experience, if our loved one is telling us something that could potentially be dangerous for them in terms of their safety, for example, just coming to mind, a person's going to go out for a walk and they think they're walking in one state and they're really not. What should we do in that case? Let them think that they really are where they are?
Oh, if you are with them, that's fine. If they are going by themselves, realize that they will get lost, and if you cannot find them right away, you may not be able to find them. And a lot of people with dementia, Alzheimer's disease particularly, if you do not find them within the first few hours, you may not find them. So it's really particularly important to know what their roots are if they are walking by themselves. If you trust them enough that they can walk on their own, know their roots, know where they go. If you know where they think they are in their timeline, because as the brain shrinks, the short-term memory goes, but the long-term memory stays, which is why they think they're in another state or another city or someplace else, and they think they have to be somewhere. They're going to wander off, and they can literally die within 24 hours if they aren't recovered. So it's really important that they are not walking by themselves once they get to the point where they can't navigate. That'll become obvious because you're going to notice the things in the house, like maybe they can't find the bathroom now. Maybe they are getting confused when they leave the kitchen to find out where their bedroom is to go to bed at night. So it's going to be very obvious that they're having issues where or they could be saying they're going to walk down to Lucky's grocery store, and Lucky's grocery store happens to be in Tennessee and you're in North Carolina. So it's one of those things that you have to know what the signs might be. So your loved one, if it's a parent or whatever, you've lived with them many, many years, you have an idea of what their history is. So you can figure out, okay, where do they think they are? Having a memory book so they can tell you where they are in their story and their timeline will give you a lot of clues as to how to cope with them and what answers to give them. So if it's one of those things where it's getting close to dark, you want to come up with something that, so that they are not out wandering and going by themselves, and just redirect them with another activity. A lot of times this happens around when they're having sundowners in the late afternoon, early evening, and it's really important that they have an activity because that's what's causing the pacing and the wandering.
Thank you, Tracy.
Mhm.
Just to continue a little bit on what you just shared, if they think they're going out to Lucky's grocery store and Lucky's grocery store is another state, do you let them leave the house knowing that you can see where they're going, but there is no Lucky's grocery store?
You probably don't want to let them leave the house. They're gonna need to have somebody going with them, because if they think they're going to Lucky's grocery store, how fast do you think they're going to get lost? I mean, what you can do is let's say you have the advantage of having a fenced backyard. You can have them walking around burning off energy out there. Or if you have children, grandchildren, cousins, nieces, whatever, family, friends that can walk with them, somebody from your church, so anybody that you can have to help you spread out the care, so that they can actually get out and exercise, and then they can tell you their story of wherever it is, so that they're socializing. But if they're thinking that they're going to Lucky's grocery store and that's the wrong state, it's probably not a good idea to let them go by themselves.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And Tracy, I know that you have your own book, but you have another book and you wanted to talk a little bit about that. Tell us more.
Yes, okay. This is the book. It's called Creative Care. Um, it's by Ann Bastings. It is a story about how to communicate with, or I should say story. It's instructions about how to communicate with somebody with dementia to maintain connection, and also using creative arts. One of the things that the author recommends is inviting them to tell stories. She created an organization called timeslips.org, and they literally will teach caregivers, home caregivers for free, how to engage family members, how to get them to talk and tell their own story instead of having them shut down, or if they're sitting there weeping or whatever, you can actually engage their creative side and actually get more engagement out of them, and perhaps slow down the dementia. Anything you can do to engage their brain to make it work, where they're actually enjoying themselves and they aren't given restrictions. They can't remember stuff, but they can make up stuff. And so if you encourage them to make up stuff, one of the examples they use in the book is they have a picture of the Marlboro Man, and they literally said to a group of people in a care home, they said, what's his name? So they gave him a name. And then they said, "What does he do for a living?" And everybody gave their idea of what they did for a living. They literally wrote down what everyone did, and at the end, they read their story. And they got people to talk and engage that actually hadn't been speaking for quite a while. So it wasn't that they couldn't speak, it's just that they didn't feel safe to speak because they They couldn't answer a remember question. So it's just a very, very interesting thing to engage family members with. They also do training for professional organizations. That does have a cost to it. One of the things that I would like to share with everybody, because at some point, your family member is going to end up in hospice. And there are things that you can do to create memories for yourself, because that's the most important time when you are just grieving so much because you are losing that family member. You are going through all sorts of things, and when it's coming towards the end, there's a time when, instead of just thinking that there's no way to communicate with them, uh, that there might be. And so I want to share with you just an example in the book of what one of the people did. It's about a woman in her with her husband in hospice, and then her niece is there. So this first story that pioneering and visionary choreographer Liz Lerman shared with me and later published in her book essays Hiking the Horizontal. Liz's uncle was at the end of his life. Her family gathered at the hospital to comfort her aunt, who was distraught. Her uncle was in a coma, and as they gathered together in the hospital room waiting for the end, his arms were spasming rather violently. Liz's aunt begged the staff to sedate him to calm the jerky movements. But that would certainly mean the end of any possibility that he could connect with them before he passed. Liz asked her aunt for permission to try something. What would it be like, she wondered, to move with him? What would his movements at this profound moment in life feel like? Were they only meaningless spasms, or were there more to them? Liz's aunt agreed to the experiment, so Liz took her uncle's hands into hers and let his movements lead her. I followed wherever his arms took me. It didn't feel like jerky. It didn't feel as jerky as it looked. It didn't seem to be about nervousness at all. More of a kind of gliding through the air, she wrote. Watching this shared moment, Liz's aunt asked if she could try it, and so his final moments shifted from sedation to expression. That last image I have of my uncle alive is seeing my aunt dancing with him. So, something to keep in mind is that there is joy and there are moments that you can keep. It's not all devastation.
Wow, that was really powerful, Tracy. Thank you for reading that and sharing it with us. I'm wondering also, you are going to be having some experts that are going to come here and share some things with us. And
Yes.
based on your experience, you mentioned that both your mom and dad both had dementia. Is that very common because they're obviously from different gene pools?
Well, my mom's dementia was from postoperative cognitive decline. So it's also called anesthesia dementia. She had cancer. When they did the surgery, she was at an age where she could not recover from the anesthesia. And so it gave her dementia. So it wasn't Alzheimer's disease. Unfortunately, it does mimic Alzheimer's disease because of the irritation it does with the brain. When during that time, what I ended up doing to connect with her was I read her stories. And also what I found very healing about this was, because her memory reset like within 10 minutes, I actually took advantage of that, and I talked to her about the things that we didn't do well together with during our lifetime and just chatted about it. And I didn't put any, pressure on her. I was just talking to her about it, saying, this why did this happen, or can you explain this, this was before I understood that she couldn't. And so then I was just talk to her about certain things, and when I got it off my chest, then 5 minutes later it would be gone. She couldn't remember it. We'd talk about something else, and then I'd start reading the book. So for me, it was a very lovely way of getting everything out, and just having this wonderful release that I could share it with my mom, that there was no angst, because to her I was a stranger. She didn't know me as her daughter. So I took advantage of that. I healed from it. And I have some really fantastic memories of us reading and talking about the book, because strangely, she could remember the storyline of the book and tell me which ones she liked and which ones she didn't, and which characters she liked and which ones she didn't. So I just didn't know which part of the brain that I was going to be getting to. And I would just take what I got when I got it.
Wow, that's beautiful, Tracy. And you mentioned that at some point your mom didn't recognize you. What are the stages for people who maybe they have a loved one in their home, or maybe they're watching this and they're thinking, I don't know, it sounds like me. I'm not remembering things. What are those stages?
Well, I'm not going to use the one the Alzheimer's Association gives you because it's a little confusing going 1 through 7. But basically, you've got early, moderate, or pre-dementia. Then you've got early onset, you've got moderate, and then you've got severe. And moderate's the longest portion of the disease. That's when you start noticing the cognitive decline. People can no longer pay their bills. They can't remember how to drive to the bank. They get lost in the grocery store. They forget to take their medications. Maybe they forget to eat. So it's during that time when care is really important, when they need to be guided and need help. When it gets to severe, they probably are down to being able to say 5 or 6 words. They can't really talk to you anymore. Feeding becomes difficult, and their movements are also, they can't move themselves anymore. They become bed bound, generally speaking, and so then it's end of life care. And sometimes you'll see people curling up into a ball because their muscles are contracting, and a lot of times hospice will help them. If you're with hospice, will help stretch them out so that they're not just cramped in a little ball. So it's just depends on where you are in that stage, but moderate is definitely the longest section of the disease, and you'll see it progress. And it doesn't happen all at once, it'll happen in stages. Usually you'll notice a few things, everything will be stable for a while, and then there'll be a dip. And the dip could be from a health change, a chemistry change, or it could be from something like travel. If the travel is too exhausting for them, then whatever that change becomes permanent.
Horrible disease, horrible stages that people go through. And I'm wondering, in your experience, as the person goes through these stages, at some point they're aware of the changes that are taking place and they're still in there. They realize they're not remembering things and they're very confused, but they're still your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, whomever.
Mhm.
During that stage, when it might not be possible to do the things for them that you want to do because they're not agreeing to it, how do you treat that? So, for example, you mentioned this is a point where you need to bring in care. What if the person is highly aware of the fact that they don't want any care? They don't want anyone coming in the home. They don't want to leave the home. How does one deal with that situation?
That's when you have to reframe it. Okay, so you want to reframe it so that it's not, maybe not their idea, but like, wouldn't it be nice to take the burden off of you to do this? And are you feeling lonely right now? Would it be okay if somebody came over and visited? And then, oh, when that person's there visiting, is it okay? And then have that person when they're there say, "Oh, can I help you by washing the dishes, or can I help you by doing this?" So you can reframe it, not stating that it is home health, or that it is you can't do this because you're falling apart and you're worthless. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to empower them and let them know that they still have control, but they still get to say no because they're an autonomous adult. We all have the right to say no. It's our lives, but there are times when then you need an extra help. So it's more like framing it as a gift. Like, would you accept this gift? Would you like to go to this party? Would you like to do such and such? Reframe it in such a way that it sounds inviting, because literally if you invite them instead of saying you can't do this anymore, you're falling apart, I'm taking over. So you just want to make sure that it's something where it's an invitation, they get the right to choose, and then ask them, what would you like? Literally invite them to be part of it. So, what would you like to do? How would you like to handle this? If you have a point where you can't handle it, what are your thoughts on how you want to handle it? I mean, just get them to give you the what ifs, because then when they get to that point, you've already got a plan. And so you can talk to them about it. You can encourage them. Now, some people like are not going to appreciate that, and they're going to fight it tooth and nail. At which point you're not gonna have a choice. You're just gonna have to get some extra help in there no matter what. But if you can get them to agree and to be happy about it, then you're not gonna have as much of a fight. It's just understanding where they're coming from. Ask them, Why are they afraid? What are they scared of losing? Because literally they are losing something. They're losing their brain. And so they're feeling lost. So it's just like, what are you afraid of? And address those fears.
I love that. I love the way you just summarized all that. And during this process, Tracy, based on what you have gone through, how did you make that switch from loving daughter to I have to take my heart and put it over here for now, and I'm going to be the caregiver? Like, are there steps that you took? Did you go outside and scream? Did you take a pillow and start beating it? What did you do, and how long did it take?
Uh, it was not fast. Fortunately, my husband held me together because, yeah, that was not easy. So it was a process. I'm going to be blunt. Um, I failed a lot at first. I got angry, I would yell, I was not a pretty person, and then I realized the damage that I was doing not only to my dad, but to myself. And my husband, in his brilliance, would remind me that, there are other ways to doing this. If you relax a little bit, look at it slightly differently, you can actually get something out of it. And so then when I started talking to other people about how they did it, and they were explaining to me, create that safe space for them and let my dad tell me what he thinks, and then after I finally started choosing to let go and to reimagine how our relationship could be, it was not easy because you've got a lifetime of habits and you don't want to let go of them because it's comfortable. And now you're in the biggest part of your discomfort you could ever imagine. And that takes a while to choose to work your way through it because it's scary and it's hard to deal with. And so once you get to that point where you choose to take that step, you choose to let go just a little bit and try it just to see how it works. It doesn't have to be something big. It can be something small. Like when I finally figured out that my dad couldn't help me wrap presents because the presents weren't wrapped artistically. But if I had him wrap a present that was for a friend, and then he would find it on his pillow the next morning, it actually had his clothes in it, and I needed him to bathe. This was the perfect opportunity to have him be excited because he got to open this present. I was recycling cards that I had from friends and family members that they wrote for the little gift. And then after he bathed and changed his clothes, I would take his picture and tell him I was sending the picture to whatever friend gave him the gift. And so it ended up being something that we changed the routine. Then I wasn't listening to something over and over again, and we had a lot of fun. And after a while, he would start posing like he was a rock star or a model or something. It became fun and a great memory for me. So, and then I also had a picture in case he wandered because my dad was a consummate escape artist. He would wander at the drop of a hat until I finally addressed the issue causing the wandering. And so then I had a photo for the police because I needed to be able to show what he looked like, and I could never remember what he was wearing that day. So it just you have to work it into a routine, do it slowly. It's not going to happen all at once. Forgive yourself. You're going to make mistakes. There's lots of do-overs with dementia. You just have to, ask for forgiveness and then just keep working to prove that you are, that you have a good relationship with your family member. But it takes time. It's not something that you can just say, "Oh, blam, this is it," and I'm off and running. It just doesn't happen that way.
I appreciate your honesty and your candor and the fact that you found levity in some ways for you both to have
Mhm.
these shared experiences. And I'm wondering for people who, let's say, people have long-term care insurance or they have the money and they say, you know what, I just don't want to see this every day. I'm going to invite my loved one to live in an assisted living or some type
Mhm.
of environment. What are your thoughts about giving control of the care completely over to someone else based on the fact that you decided to take it upon yourself for four family members to take care of them?
The There are times when you cannot physically keep up with the care. I got to that point myself. I had one family member that ended up in skilled nursing and one family member that ended up in assisted living. Um, Two completely different levels of care. What I didn't know about assisted living is assisted living does not. Okay, assisted living has a two-part step process. They will keep your family member until they can no longer take care of them. If they go on to hospice at that stage, then they can stay there until they pass. If there's an in between time where they're not on hospice, they will be asked to leave so they can be kicked out. And that happened to my family on multiple occasions. So we also had a successful time where we got the hospice worked out in time where we were able to go all the way through without being kicked out. So we also had a skilled care facility where in that one it was all the way to passing, and we did not have to worry about that. So it just depends on the situation. But there are times when you physically cannot keep up the care, and then it becomes dangerous for both of you. So it is not that you have done something wrong. There are going to be people that will fight to the end to take care of them. But if you've done multiple family members, you're going to understand what I'm talking about when you are so tired, you can barely get your body out of bed in the morning. You can't think straight, and then you might accidentally dose them with the wrong medication. I mean, there are just too many things that could go wrong, too many accidents that can happen. So it can be about safety, and safety should be a priority.
It's such a heavy topic. It's, and for people who don't have any experience in it, I'm imagining that they're thinking, wow, I hope this never happens to anyone I care about. And for people who are or have gone through the process, I think it's kind of, you go through various stages where I would say denial. I say the grieving process, really. There's a certain part where you're in denial about it. And then when you finally accept it, you're angry because you literally have your loved one there, but they're no longer the loved one you knew. And then knowing that the situation is just going to get worse and you feel sorry for them. And at the same time, you're angry at the disease.
Yes. And you do. You grieve twice with dementia. You're saying the long goodbye, you are going through anger, you're going through frustration, you are going through grief. I mean, just huge waves of grief. And you'll have a grief attack. And you won't even expect it. It'll just knock you to your knees. And so you'll just be sitting there weeping on the ground when really you would think you should be up and doing something because you're stronger than this. We're human. We can't do everything. And we have to acknowledge that we can't do everything so we can survive it. Because if you just keep forcing and forcing and forcing without getting help or without taking steps to learn more, there's no way you're going to be able to survive it, and you'll pass before your loved one. And that happens a lot. So, especially in older couples, when there's a spouse caring for there's when it's spouses caring for each other, basically the caregiver can pass before the person that has the disease goes. So and a lot of people don't recognize that. And there's a lot of things that we can do as family members and caregivers that um, as community support to the person that is the one with dementia. I mean, even if it's just checking in to see how they're doing and saying hi, to give them just the caregiver some socialization, to give them some downtime. Um, Caregiving is so exhausting, it's all-encompassing. People tend to throw themselves into it or they tend to run away. It's usually one or the other. It's you don't see what you wanna do is you wanna make sure that they have support so that they can continue to do this, because our time as their support system has value, whether it's going over and just washing dishes or talking to them, or, sending them a postcard saying, "We love you, we know we're thinking about you," and then they can use that as something to distract their loved one with, saying, "Look, we got a postcard from so and so," and then you have something there that's in their hand. So, anything that you can do adds value to help somebody else. And I think what we've done is we've lost our sense of community, and people are so afraid of dementia. It's not contagious. So it's not something that you're going to get if you're in the room with them, but it's also our fear of that happening to us. So, but anything that you can do it's small, but it helps. It all helps. So it's wonderful if you can just do something to, just check in, because what happens with dementia is it becomes very, very isolating, and people don't know how to behave or react. And so they just back away and they do other things because it's more comfortable. And it's stepping outside that comfort zone and just doing a thing or one or two things. I mean, it's amazing how powerful that is.
Tracy, you just hit the nail on the head. I think that's such an important point because, in my experience, the phone calls stop coming. People just disappear. And
Mhm.
if you were to speak with them, they would say it's because they don't know what to say. They don't know how to act. They've known this person for however long, and now that person's not there. They can't have a conversation with the person because the person keeps repeating themselves. So what I'm wondering also is, what I've seen is if you take your loved one out of the home, they're comfort zone where they feel safe. They're excited about doing it, but then when they get to whatever it is they're supposed to do, they're very confused. And then it almost seems like it's a setback. Is this possible?
Oh, ew, that is what's happening. You have described exactly what's happening. Um, if you put them in a situation where there's extra noise, lots of conversations going around in the background, any normal party, there's going to be too much going on and they can't process it or separate out the sounds. It's part of the dementia and it's overwhelming. What you and I can process as background noises be- becomes just this wave, a tidal wave just going across them, and yes, they'll melt down. There could be kids running around playing. You could have dogs barking. You could have people washing dishes in the kitchen. I mean, whatever it is, it's just too much noise and they're going to melt down. What what works best for someone with dementia is if you can do it in small groups, 2, 3, no more than 4 people, where they can talk quietly, maybe have soft music playing in the background, something that's calming and an activity that's at their level. Because what you're doing when let's say you throw them into a family reunion, you are asking them to perform at a level that they can no longer function at, and they're going to melt down. So, unless you have something in place, like if you have like a stuffed animal to put in their lap, or something that they can hug or hold on to, wrap them in a blanket, give them a fidget quilt, something they can play with so that they can focus on that instead of being barraged by all the sound, all the people around them, because they're not used to that. They can't handle it. So it's literally, imagine how you would feel if you had a tornado coming at you and you could not get away. You're out in the middle of the prairie in North Dakota and there is no cover. That's what it feels like for somebody when they're in a party. There is nowhere for them to go. You'll see them melt down, they'll start screaming, they'll start yelling. It's because they're terrified and they can't control what's going on around them.
What a great analogy. I can actually picture that what you just described. So again, we go back to the isolation piece of it. So if they can't really socialize in ways that they used to, maybe even going anywhere, maybe to a restaurant or to some type of activity that's outside the home seems like a great idea, but then later they have no memory of it, or they feel just overwhelmed. So, what do you do? Leave them at home? Stay with them at home all the time?
No, no, no. You can take them out. Just because they don't remember it doesn't mean that they don't have the good feelings that they carried with them. You want to give them the positive feelings and you don't want to isolate yourself. Um, with going out to eat, they have very specific things you already know that they'll eat and they won't eat. They don't know what to order, so you just offer to order for them, or you offer them an option saying, would you like X, Y, or Z? Don't give them more than 3 choices. Usually, they'll ask for whatever their favorite thing is, or if they're farther in the dementia, they'll ask for the last thing they hear. So always put their favorite thing last. But give them that option so they still feel empowered. You still get to go out and socialize. They'll be exhausted, and yes, there's gonna be a bit of a setback, but both of you got something out of that. So you've got a memory, you've got some social time. You, the caregiver, actually get a little bit of relief because it's not just you and your loved one. And so there's a lot of components to that. Yes, there is going to be decline, but you can't stop the disease. So we're recognizing that it's going to happen, and you just want to be able to make sure you create the memories with them just because they don't have it. And then you can talk about it and they can tell you about something else. They can come up with something, like I was talking about creating the stories in time slips. Anything you can do to connect with them. Also teaching other people how to communicate with them. Um, in my book is a letter that one of my friends shared with me that they wrote to their family and friends that taught people how they could benefit and spend time with that person. And so it was to me, it was actually a revelation the first time I read it. It was like, "Oh my gosh." And they got it from Jolene Brakey's book, or Brackey's book, excuse me, Creating Moments of Joy Along the Alzheimer's Journey, an excellent book. And it taught me when I was reading it, that we can give them their favorite treat to calm them down. We can have certain distraction techniques at the ready so that that person, if they come over, let's say they came over, you had a friend come over to spend time with your family member, whoever that is, and you have 3 options for things that they can do if they start melting down. And you have to teach them that they can't ask, "Do you remember?" questions. But they can bring photo albums over and they can look at photo albums and then have your let's say it's a mom. Let's say it's your mom. You have the photo album out, and with me, it was my sister, and so she would be going through the pictures, and then my mom would tell whatever story that was, what that was associated with that picture, we found out all sorts of things that may or may not have been true. It was kind of fun, actually, after we gave ourselves permission to not correct, um, and that was kinda hard, but once you get past that point, you can actually have a lot of fun with that. So, it's just getting past the fear, and fear is false evidence appearing real. Once you get past that, you can actually get more out of the relationship, more meaning, and really that's what it's about.
Wow, absolutely, Tracy. What a great first episode on this show. Before we leave for today, please tell people a little bit more about your book. I think your book is absolutely fantastic. You've done extremely well in terms of book sales and reaching people, communicating. If you can just hold up your book and then just show the formatting. I always love this with the big box that you have there that really gives people an idea of what's in that particular chapter.
I have to apologize. I have to grab it. I didn't even think of grabbing my book. Hang on just a second.
All right, we'll wait till Tracy comes back. So, if you are in a situation where you have a loved one who you think has dementia, hasn't been diagnosed, and you're going through a hard time, we'd love to hear from you so that we can help you. Tracy is available. She's back now. Tracy, welcome back.
So, this is a toolbox and a dementia map. Um, I was so frustrated when I was trying to do care and find stuff in one book that I could not find. I look at this as fitting in between the pages of the 36-hour day. So, what I did here is we have an 8-page table of contents so that you can run your finger down that page and find whatever's happening in that moment so that you can address it with step-by-step instructions. At the beginning of every chapter, I have a text box that explains what, and I'm sorry, let me get this where you can see it. Hopefully you can read that, where it explains what's in that chapter. So if you're like me and you're a page fanner and you're frustrated and you're just flipping through pages trying to find what you remembered reading 10 days ago, then you'll be able to find it when you flip through the pages. It's also in large print, and the book is, let's face it, it's enormous because you want to be able to have it open so you can follow along in whatever you're looking at and just lay it on the counter and it won't slam shut on you. But basically, what I did is I put in here resources. There's over 130 resources in this book to help you with your dementia journey, going everything from adaptive clothing all the way to support services and everything in between. It's got free services, it's got paid services, it's whatever it is that you're looking for. Military support is in there. There's just all sorts of things that you may or may not find in other books like this. But I wanted to make sure that you had a toolbox that you could sit down and flip to that page. And today you need that screwdriver. Tomorrow you need an Allen wrench. So it's whatever you need, you can just find it right away.
Tracy, one of the things I love about the book, in addition to all of the gems and really like the support group information that you provide in there, is the design of the book. I think it's genius. The size of it, the font, and then the fact that it does open easily. How did you come up with that idea?
Uh, well, let's put it this way. My publisher and I kind of she was the one that decided large print because I realized how expensive, and that was my pie in the sky. I really wanted something that was large print and large enough to see because uh, I don't always have my glasses on. And I'm at the age where I need to have glasses to read. And sometimes if I don't have I can't read the small print without my glasses, and I realize that other people are going to be like me and have the same problem. And I wanted to make sure that I had something that was in the order of the disease because if I'm dealing with something at the moment, I want to be able to flip through to that spot in the book. And I wasn't able to find it in other books. And when I would go through like the 36-hour day, which again, excellent book, it is a little hard to go through and find everything you want in either the table of contents or the index if you can't remember the right word that you're looking for. And so I wanted to make this friendly to someone that's like me, which many of you are going to be just like me, where I just need to find it now. Um, and that's what I was looking for. And so I really wanted to make sure that that's what it was the book that anybody can, they have that question in that moment, they can flip to it and it's there. It was literally born out of my frustration of not being able to find something when I needed it.
Well done, you. And for people who want to get your book, we will be going through your website on a future show, but your website is the best place to go.
Yes, yes. It's also it's available everywhere, so you can get it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Walmart, Target, your favorite independent bookstore. Um, it's available everywhere. But yeah, if you want to go through my website, there's a link right there that take you right to the book to be able to purchase it.
Thank you, Tracy. Well, I'll have you on Spotlight. If you can let everyone know when we'll be doing this show so that they can join us for the next time.
We are meeting on the third Tuesday of every month, and it's at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern. I'm not sure what the other time zones numbers are, but we will be back here again on the 21st of March, and I hope to see you all there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. It's been a great first show. Well done, Tracy. And you just have so much information. It's amazing to me. You are an expert in this field. What amazes me is that you lost four of your family members, right? You learned so much. And instead of kind of wallowing, you were talking about that double grieving process. You
Mhm.
actually said, let me take what I've learned and share it with the world so that they don't have to go through what I went through, or they can share some of these great experiences or create these memories with their loved ones.
I thank you because I feel better when I help people. It actually makes me feel better. And so the more people I can help, the happier I am. So I'm being greedy, okay? But I want to help. And I don't think that that our efforts should go to waste. I think we've all learned something from this experience. We should share it. The more we share, the better the outcome is for everybody. So, and then you feel better afterwards.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tracy Cram Perkins. That's what we're here for. We provide education, a little bit of entertainment, some hope, and inspiration. So, Tracy and I are thrilled to have you with us. Please do send your questions, comments. You can reach out to Tracy. You can reach out to me. My information is also in the comments. But don't go through this alone because it's a lonely journey, a frustrating one, a traumatizing one. So you have this gift of this book, which is really the Bible, I would say, the Bible for dementia home care. So please reach out to Tracy and also purchase her book. Tracy, we are signing off for now. Our next show is coming up. It's The Business Talk Show with Mr. Al Cini, and we're celebrating our 125th episode for today. So we'll see you all back then. Tracy, have a beautiful rest of your day. I look forward to chatting with you soon.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye, everyone.